This is Meet the Movie Press. It's December the 13th, 2019, the penultimate show of the year. We got SAGs, we got Globes, we got the Critics' Choice, nominations galore, Ghostbusters Afterlife, Netflix and Shill, and the In the Heights trailer, plus R.I.P. Danny Aiello, and the box office and the week's big releases.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Meet the Movie Press.
This is Meet the Movie Press. It is December the 13th, 2019, for the week before the holidays. It is a very, very busy week. We have a lot to talk about, so let's have a catch-up straight away. First of all, Demetri, who are you? Where can we find you? Please welcome back to the show.
Hey, it's great to be back. You can find me here at Meet the Movie Press and other Popcorn Talk Network shows. Happy holidays, everybody.
And Scott Menzel.
Happy holidays, everyone. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @TheOtherScottM.
Okay, we've got a lot to get through.
And I'm just dying to ask, hey, kid, what's with the life preserver?
Okay, fine. I look like I'm fucking cosplaying Marty McFly, who made some bad life choices. I've done it twice this week, but thank you for bringing that up.
Hey, you're welcome.
Okay, cool. Let's get through these. First of all, let's talk about all these nominations. Scott, I want you to take the lead on this. SAG, Golden Globe, and Critics' Choice, the group that we're both members of.
Yes.
All announced nominations this week. A lot of people got their pants in a twist.
Yes.
Over various things. Run through what the headlines are on each, please.
Okay, so the big deal, of course, at the Golden Globes was the lack of female writers as well as female filmmakers.
Yeah.
We know this has been a big conversation within the industry for the past couple of years. And man, people were pissed when this came out on Monday. Many people, including Olivia Wilde and Alma Harrell, took to Twitter to voice their concerns, and they were slowly backed by Lulu Wang and a few other people. The Golden Globe people responded
Yep.
with a very interesting response.
It was an interesting response.
We vote for movies. That's pretty much what they said.
Yeah.
We vote for movies.
And do you know what? That's actually, I won't name the person, but there's someone that I spoke to who works for one of the trades, and they said that they don't vote for the gender of the director.
Right.
They vote for the movies.
Yep.
And this is someone who I would expect a very informed and balanced opinion from, and it's a thing that I agree with. And while I do think there were a lot of good movies this year directed by women, as there are many years, I think when you boil it down to, and we've said this before on the show, by gender, it's very dangerous then because it becomes tokenism.
Yes.
And I think that is a path that we do not want to do because that is a false positive. So while it is very controversial and we've had some exceptionally good movies made by women this year, as we do, like I say, many years, this year, perhaps the opinion of these people across a number of groups, they just weren't the ones directed by women.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that I think there's been a lot of controversy around that this year, more than the years in the past, mainly because you have 3 movies right now that have been such a big push for award season. Booksmart, of course, Honey Boy, which, has been doing so well in limited release. They wound up expanding into almost like 500 theaters. It's been doing really well. Farewell over the summer did gangbuster numbers for A24,
Yep.
big talk out of Sundance, and of course, not opened yet, but Little Women. And to me, Little Women was the safe, easy choice. And I was actually very surprised to see with all those A-listers in there that they snubbed Greta completely.
I was very surprised by that, but let's also not forget that we have had in a number of these bodies an increasing number of representative people included within these cliques. So while we are cliques, groups, guilds, whichever way you want to call them, so let's not forget there are women in these guilds who have also not voted for women.
But the Golden Globes are a little bit different. Let's just say they're different.
Yes, they are.
So what will be more interesting to me is the Academy. The Golden Globes, though, they're a different. They aren't a guild. They aren't. It's the HFPA. They're a small amount of people compared to the guilds and to the Academy, and they have a history of for lack of better words, corruption. Throughout the years, you can buy awards. They have a history of just not being on the up and up with how things get nominated, and being someone who's been in the distribution side, and that Almahara was like just extraordinarily vocal. It was actually a breath of fresh air to read what she was saying, because everything she was saying is true. And
yeah, I'm not saying what she's saying isn't true.
So, but you can easily buy a nomination and award with the Golden Globes, given the studio, and studios and publicists fear them. They are the most important screenings to book for any studio.
And I can confirm this only by I'm friends with, I do a lot of junkets, and obviously I go back and forth between television and one-on-ones. And one of the things that I always talk to, because I like to talk to the people who I see on a regular basis and ask them how they're doing. And one of the things that I hear on repeat almost every single year is the members of the Golden Globes are the biggest pains in the asses to deal with. They hate dealing with them, and they treat them like shit.
When have you ever heard of publicists being afraid of anybody?
Yeah.
Publicists. They are truly afraid of the Golden Globes.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of guilds that have a lot, and I'm not defending the Golden Globes at all. There's a lot of guilds that have a lot of power. There's another one that obviously came as quite a controversial thing this week, the HFPA. And it's a case of, but you create monsters. To a certain extent, the industry perpetuates these to continue to exist. Well, while you keep feeding the monster's going to get more and more hungry, and the monster's going to grow.
Yeah,
there's a lot of things that need to change in the industry right now. I mean, Honey Boy's a great example of films that I think got overlooked. Now, Honey Boy is a movie that I did not like, but I absolutely admire the film that was made. I can see exactly why a lot of people like it. It just didn't work for me. But all of that had nothing to do with the gender of the director. I never watch any movie from the point of view of it being directed or written by a man or a woman. I'm looking at the final product.
Sure.
So, I mean, while I absolutely understand, I think there's absolutely 100% credibility to what's being said, and the fury and the reaction and the anger that's coming through. I just don't. It's one issue in a pile of issues that currently beset the industry, and we'll get to another a bit later in the show. So with the other awards, let's move on to some of those, because with 3 this week, it was kind of a hell of a week for nominations.
It really was. And I mean, I think it was interesting to point out that between Golden Globes and SAG, one of the movies that I think shocked a lot of people getting love still is Rocket Man.
Yeah.
So which
I'm very happy to see, to be honest with you. A lot of people slept on that movie.
And I think Paramount's very excited about that, because they weren't sure. But that's pretty crazy. And SAG obviously loved Bombshell.
Yeah.
They loved Bombshell. I thought the SAG nominations, there was this new category that they put in with the stunt. And that was the most mind-boggling of any category I've seen this year. Like, they have Joker in there as a stunt. And it's like the dancing on the stairs, coming down the stairs. I mean, like, what's
getting hit with the sign?
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah. that for me, I'm like, I'm really glad that category is in there, and I'm like, but those are the nominees?
Yeah.
It was like the nominees are?
Yeah, like Irishman. Oh, he kicked the guy on the ground. Kick a ball. Look at that guy. Oh, he did a good job.
Ninja Pesci.
Yeah.
No, there were several things there where I was like, you got it so almost right, and then you totally fucked it up.
Yeah, and the one thing that's very consistent through all 3, before we get into the Critics' Choice, is Netflix. Netflix is literally dominating this award season. 61 nominations over at Critics' Choice, and I believe in Golden Globes it was about 44. Don't quote me on that. It's somewhere in the 40s.
And not one woman for the Golden Globes.
No,
that's the other thing.
And if someone really wants to bring this up, no female filmmakers in Netflix at all.
Yep.
Because we have not said that, and I think we should just start talking
I
about
literally
that
had
right
that
now.
conversation with somebody the other day.
Yeah,
You know?
there is none. I mean, yes, there's the Ava DuVernay show that also got snubbed, but that's about it in terms of any of these films that they've been pushing.
And we heard a lot about Netflix this week too.
Yeah.
Because they started releasing, and I think we're going to talk about it later.
Potentially, you mentioned it now in case we don't get to
you
it.
know, it was The Irishman and how many views it got. See, this is what I love about Netflix.
And there were two figures.
There are.
Yeah, because Nielsen is saying it was 17 million viewers, and Netflix is saying it was higher than that.
Right, and what they try to hide under, but it's been out in the news is that of the 17 million, let's go off of Nielsen because they are a reputable tracking source, right? So we'll go off the Nielsen number. Only 18% of that 17 million actually watched the movie all the way through. So, which is really interesting to me. But what's even further interesting to me is that we don't know how much it made at the box office. Why? Because Netflix won't report those numbers. And yet they're winning all these awards, yet they shit all over our distribution process of getting movies into theaters and how they're distributed. They don't care about the movies. They care about their viewers. That's what bothers me even more so with the Golden Globes and not even having a Honey Boy, which was released theatrically the right way, and it's being ignored. Booksmart as well. And again, I agree with you about Little Women. That's the safest bet. Like Greta Gerwig wasn't like, really? Like, so, but Netflix gets 40 and it shits all over the way movies are distributed theatrically. It makes no sense to me. But they can spend a lot of money.
There's been a lot of conversation about the Netflix thing, and I've sort of just accepted that Netflix is here to stay, and I think your little argument that you have, you're gonna be moving that on to Disney soon, and then you're gonna be moving that to Amazon and everyone else because
if you think so,
I think it's the way for the future.
I don't believe we'll ever see a Marvel movie,
Not a Marvel movie. You don't need to say that, but you're gonna see a bunch of really good movies that are going to go directly to streaming. 100%.
I've yet to see it on Disney Plus because they haven't had any good of their originals.
Togo was actually really good and deserved to be in a movie theater.
But I'll be honest with you, I don't think Disney Plus anticipated Disney Plus being quite so popular or successful outside of the Disney bubble. So I think they just weren't ready to have good shit to come straight out with.
Yeah, that's why they have the...
I think basically the long and the short of it is they thought it was going to be hardcore Disney fans, some of whom will just watch anything if it has a mouse attached to it.
Yeah.
And I thought it was like, it's mostly for kids. And then you got adults watching, it's like, fuck, all we had was Mandalorian. What do we do now? Not even Lady in the Tramp. It's like a Noel. Fuck. I feel genuinely embarrassing for that.
Yeah, me too.
But anyway, talking of viewers, and obviously in relationship to Netflix and awards season, viewers of this show, obviously live, really important to us. Thank you so much for that. Sky Patterson in this morning. Luke Skywanker is in the chat this morning. Zeno Hour. Good to see you popping up on Collider as well this week when I was on there. You were on there as well this week,
yes.
weren't you? Yeah. And the other Scott M, who's right here. Kame Egan in the chat as well this morning. BlackRock 316. Jenna James in the chat as well. Thank you to each and every one of you for being part of the show because, that's really what it's all about. What people are saying in the chat as well. Thanks, Sky. I love the Life Preserver jacket look. It's cool. It's fun. It's 80s. I don't know why, but I don't know. Pitch from Zeno Hour. Simon Thompson as Marty McFly with other Scott as Doc, Demetri as Biff.
Hello, McFly.
Jason Statham as George. I actually had a very nice chat with George McFly this week. Which was quite weird. Just generally weird. Sky Patterson or female filmmakers. I'm a little upset that some female filmmakers are getting shut out of the awards season. So many have done incredible work. I guess you have to be Tarantino, Zemeckis, Scorsese, Spielberg. I mean, Zemeckis got shut out last year, but that's because his film was terrible. I genuinely, even though I'm, woke, I do have a problem with this whole thing about, and it does happen that men get to fail upwards and women are held more accountable when they don't have successes. We do see that. I'm not going to deny that at all, and that is not okay. However, people are not being shut out because they're women. specifically.
Specifically, right.
Specifically. So I just think we have to be very, very careful with this argument. And, at the end of the day, not everybody can win a prize. And we don't want to go down the road of tokenism and an optic, because that is worse than not being included at all, in my opinion. It's a consolation prize.
I don't disagree
And there
with
have
that.
been a lot of great movies made by women, but I do think that we should look at movies as movies.
Right. And there have been, I think, this year, like more than a handful amount of really good movies that we're still talking about today, like Booksmart. Like, so I'm not talking about that middle of the road or that, hey, I had a really good time watching that.
Harriet's a good example of that, right? Like Harriet's a movie that was directed by a female, that the movie itself is not strong, but the performance is strong.
Yeah, and
so I understand why there's not that much conversation around it.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, there are lots of movies made by men with exactly the same situation. The problem is not including enough women. It's not giving enough women enough movies to make.
Well, there's that too.
Yeah, there's that. But there's another problem.
Okay.
And
there are many problems.
There's many problems.
The list of problems is a long one.
Okay, so this is going to be the truth bomb of today. So the reality of this is that when you're in a guild, or you're a part of the Academy, you're part of the Golden Globes, you're part of the Critics' Choice, no one is looking after people to tell them, hey, did you see Waves? Hey, did you see Honey Boy? Hey, did you see Little Women? Hey, did you see Booksmart? So you're voting on, it's like throwing shit on the wall and hoping something sticks, because you really don't know what people have seen. There's people who go out of their way. I know this as someone who runs a critics organization. There's a big group of people who will go out and they will want to make sure they see every single thing. And even up to the day when the ballot's done or has to be submitted, they go out and they try to squeeze in 2 or 3 things. Then you have the other people who are like, I don't think I'm going to like Joker, so I'm not going to go see it. I don't think I'm going to like Waves, so I'm not going to go see it. So they don't even bother to watch it, and maybe they'll be surprised and like it, but they're just like, they don't want to see it. And then you have just the other people who honestly say, well, I'll see stuff if I get paid to see it, which is also a problem. So you have 3 different types of people going into this. You have the people who are 100% serious and committed, whether they get paid or not, and they want to make sure they see everything. You have the people who are only seeing stuff that they're getting paid to see, basically if they're doing an interview or a review. And then you have the people who are just kind of like, I want to be a critic, but I don't want to watch everything. I kind of want to watch the movie I want to watch. And I'm trying, in our organization, the Hollywood Critics Association, to monitor that.
And do you know what? There are the first 2. I think you're absolutely right, but I think there are certain problems within the first one, because people don't have time, and the people that tend to do watching everything aren't making any money as a career.
Right.
They are. It's simply not sustainable with the current model of the industry.
Yes. Well,
simply not sustainable.
That's another one of the issues.
So that's another one of the issues. I mean, fucking add it to the list. But when you're talking about people voting, no, you're absolutely right. But I know people in other sort of, let's say, bigger, and I mean this in no disrespect to the HCA, who don't watch all the movies because they don't want to watch them. I have sat down and I've watched a number of screeners for movies I have no interest in.
Yes.
But if they're up for consideration, I watch them, because that is what I'm. If I didn't catch them through the year, and they're going to be in awards season, I will make the effort, I will take the time, and I will watch them. Documentaries, movies, foreign language stuff that I might not want to watch, just because that's part of the job. And you're absolutely right. I think all organizations should have a checklist, and you have to literally sign the register, and you have to say, I have seen this, I have seen this, I have seen this. And if you haven't,
it's pretty simple.
Then it's pretty simple. You don't get to vote.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, if you haven't seen
some people just want the freebies, some people just want the glories, some people just want the fucking screeners, some of them just want the boasting.
Yeah. I think if you're someone who hasn't seen, I mean, when push comes to shove, at the end of the year, when it comes to about the middle of October, now thanks to Toronto, Venice, and Telluride, you know almost the majority of movies that are going to be in awards consideration. Sure. And by then you should be able to make a list of about 60 to 70 films.
Yep.
And that's really all. I mean, there's a lot of, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of smaller films that always are going to get overlooked. And unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about that.
And that's going to get worse in the days
Yes.
of more and more content than ever.
Yes.
So that is not going to
So
improve.
that's going to be so the people like the Bleecker Streets and the IFC films, like everyone was talking, like I noticed like on our nominations, people were like, oh, the Nightingale got snubbed. And I completely agree. I put Nightingale in multiple categories.
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized like Nightingale going up against like something like The Irishman, like not a chance in hell.
No.
Like the reality of it is that they don't even have enough money to actually send a screener that actually has artwork on it.
Mm-hmm.
You literally get a disc which says the name of the movie on it.
Yeah.
So that goes in a pile and that gets buried all the way on the bottom. Kudos to them for trying to send it out early, but like early and then it gets buried as Netflix and everyone else piles on.
But it wasn't even like with a note and of an explanation of what it was.
No. And I think, but what I was going to say is that you have like around the 60 to 70 movies, okay?
Yep.
And then if you're someone who actually cares, if you're an organization that cares, you should be sending that out to your members. And you should say, all right, ladies and gentlemen, which movies have you seen on this list?
Mm-hmm.
Which ones do you plan on seeing? Which ones do you don't plan on seeing? And then you essentially look at what comes back and you say, okay, well, you only saw 30% or 40. You need to get up to 50 or 60%. Otherwise, you can't vote.
Yep.
And I think that's really it because you have to also look. There's this big issue where I think within the industry too is that when movies, they're very easy to access when they're studio films.
Yep.
Big studio films, even some of the bigger indie companies. But then you have all these, I'm not even going to say they're that small movies, but those middle of the road, kind of like the A24s
Neons.
and Neons, where people don't go out of their way to see.
Yeah.
And I think you need to have a nice balance of everything on your checklist.
I
think
agree.
you need to see stuff.
I agree.
And your solution, I thought, is the simplest, most economical, and the most efficient. You sign.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
to do it for everything from fucking DMV appointments and
Right.
doctor's appointments through to everything else. It's like you sign a contract, you do a thing, you make an agreement, you have to do that.
Yeah, and it makes sense.
And thank you. I appreciate that. People in the chat continuing to talk about this. Lots of opinions. Luke Skywanker saying, Nolan gets shut out every year he makes a movie. I don't know. And you don't hear a peep out of him about it. He's too busy making movies, doesn't have time to waste on BS awards politics. I mean, do you know what? It's an interesting... we need to move on because we've taken up almost half a show on this already. And we have a lot to get through. Do you know what? A lot of this is out of the hands of the filmmakers. You make your movie, you put it out there. And there are plenty of movies that people think are perhaps going to get awards attention and they don't. And sometimes there are other movies being made by other people that just turn out to be better. There are a lot of movies that have come through in the last 6 months that people perhaps didn't think were going to be awards nominated. Who've turned out to be really big players, and some people who thought it were going to be big players, and they just didn't factor at all. So, it's fundamentally unpredictable. You get a few things that are predictable, and whether that's through legacy or because it's just a really good movie, we don't know. But, I mean, over the last couple of years, we have seen a lot of filmmakers and a lot of movies that are by smaller filmmakers or independent movies, and Moonlight is a great example of that. La La Land was not a hugely popular movie when it comes to box office, but, doing particularly well. And we've seen many more examples of that as well in the last couple of... But Lady Bird's another really good example, getting a lot of recognition. So it really is, it's really pretty much, there's some things that you can always count on, but a lot of things are always this black horse.
Right.
And also elements of movies get nominated.
Sure.
Richard Jewell, I would not think that's going to get a Best Picture nomination. We'll get to this later in the show. But there are a couple of performances in there that are getting recognition or should get recognition.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, and I didn't like the movie, but there are certain things in that movie that I really liked. But like I say, there's so many issues that need to this. There is a lot of honest dialogue that needs to happen within the industry right now, because right now it's eating itself.
Yeah.
And it is not sustainable in its current model in so many ways and in so many areas.
And it's angry. Like, this is the first year where it's angry. Like, when and again, I'm not knocking Alma for what she said, and I tend to agree with her, but it's the first time that somebody has spoken up in such a public forum, which is commendable. But because of this, it's getting out there in way more in more means than ever before.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, we need to move on. We've got so much to get through on the show today. So awards talk is over for now until we get to the next topic. Ghostbusters Afterlife trailer this week. We had so many trailers this week.
We had a lot of trailers.
Jesus Christ. I mean, I think I had more... I think I had more trailers dropped this week than I had free shit from movies. And
bully
seriously.
for you.
No, seriously. I literally, my apartment looks like I'm moving house at the moment. I have multiples of stuff in cardboard boxes. I don't know. I needed so many fucking coffee table books of The Irishman. Anyway, let's talk about Ghostbusters Afterlife trailer. Demetri, I'm going to go to you on this first of all. Your thoughts on this?
I loved it. I loved the way that it was set up. I also love that it was nostalgic but didn't rely on it. Like, we didn't see any of the characters that we already know are booked for the film, right? Like, meaning the Bill Murrays, the Dan Aykroyds, right? But I love the throwbacks, and I love the generational gap. Like, what do you mean you've never heard of Ghostbusters? So I love the Paul Rudd character and the teenager, the kids. For a teaser, I got very excited for this movie. So I really thought it was great. I can't wait to see it on the big screen. And that's the reason we're getting these trailer dumps online, because these big movies like Jumanji is opening up, Star Wars is opening up, all of these big movies are opening up for the holidays. And those are the features that the other studios are targeting to get their big guns on.
But they're obviously all movies that were meant to be watched on your phone.
Yes.
Because of... There's not a lot of scale in these movies.
No.
So, all meant to be. Don't forget. Wait and watch them on your phone. Scott Menzel.
I think you should download a pirated copy of it and then...
Preferably as ropey as fuck.
Right, and then watch it on your phone.
Yeah.
So then you can hear the talking, and then it'll be like an interactive experience, too.
If it's got subtitles, even better. Or dubbed in Gujarati. Yeah, brilliant.
But no, I completely agree. I mean, I don't know how you two felt about this, but I was very nervous about this Ghostbusters film because obviously the one that came out a couple years ago, lukewarm on. It's weird because I always feel like when they remake something, it relies so heavily on nostalgia that this one didn't.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like the first part of the trailer, it was just like setting up almost something like a Stranger Things.
Right.
Where you're kind of like, you're watching this, you're like, oh, what is this? Is this a Stranger Things
I thought
movie?
I clicked the wrong button.
Yeah. And then when it goes into that stuff and they do those little nods, but they not overkill. Like when you see Star Wars, just like, oh my God, stop.
Hey, bring in the cute creatures. Bring in the cute creatures. Bring in the guy in the
Star
black
Wars
mask.
already.
Which robot can we introduce next?
Yo, can we get a woman?
Yeah.
You got any robots, Brian?
Yeah.
You got any of those robots?
Just the subtle hints of nostalgia mixed into the trailer, and the fact, like he said, you don't have to see any of the original characters to kind of get the vibe. And then you got the girl who comes out who sort of looks like Rick Moranis' character, and you're kind of like, I'm on board. 100%.
And she's a little actor that I genuinely adore. She's done so many great things in such a short space in her career. She's so watchable. Yeah. I'm genuinely very excited, and her with Finn, I think, is going to work really,
I
nicely.
think so too. And it's funny you mentioned Rick Moranis because he's the only one that we don't know.
Right.
I would be very, very surprised if he makes an appearance. Everybody has their fingers crossed, but you know he's obviously in retirement, and he moved out of the industry for family reasons when his wife died. To be a parent, which I think is hugely admirable. But it would be nice to see him in some way referenced. I think it would be good, even if he's not a main character, but in some video or something.
It'd be a pleasant surprise.
It'd be a nice Christmas present in the summer.
Yeah.
Hashtag war on Christmas. Okay. Let's go back to awards very quickly. Actually, let's talk about another. There's a couple of trailers I want to get through that dropped this week.
Yeah.
Let's push up the agenda of the In the Heights trailer. It is another trailer this week that I was a little bit nervous about because when a lot of musicals have been very successful on the stage, and when they make them into movies, they just don't work. Like Ghostbusters Afterlife, when I watched In the Heights, genuinely, it made me feel emotion, and it made hairs on the where I have hairs on the back of my neck and my shoulders stand up. This is a movie that I was interested in, and now I think I might be in love. This looks as if it's going to be absolutely brilliant. Sorry, cats. Sorry, cats. I think you might be usurped when it comes towards season next year. I don't see you getting a lot this year. But yeah, I mean, I fell in love. I fell in love with this movie, and I hope it can deliver, Scott.
Oh, I saw this on Broadway, the original production of this on Broadway.
Oh, cool.
And it feels like it was ripped directly from the stage. Watching that trailer, captures all the same tones, everything. It looks like it's going to be a wonderful adaptation. And my only concern is because John M. Chu has not directed a musical, stage music. I'm a little nervous about that. But there's not a whole lot of sets within this that it might be okay.
You're absolutely right, and I entirely get that point of view. But one thing that I am very confident about is having seen what he did with Crazy Rich Asians, which was not a musical, but it was almost like a flamboyant musical we used to see in the 1950s, that sort of glittery, glitzy lushness. And I think he knows how to use movement, tone, and colors. And I think if you have that with already what is a great songbook, have you got people that could deliver that? I think you're halfway there. Demetri.
I agree with that. And as I tweeted out, I was just, I was just thrilled to death that it didn't have any cats in it. And it looked really good.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect. It's definitely a musical. It'll be interesting to see if it'll get the audiences in there, because I do agree with you. Sometimes they just don't work when they make that transition. So, but if it does work, right? This gives us some semblance of hope for West Side Story as well.
Yeah.
Which comes out on Christmas, which means there'll actually be 2 musicals going up against the Academy and all the awards next year.
So
they could have a dance-off.
They could. So that's what I was watching that trailer thinking, okay, they beat this to the punch. This is a really well done cut trailer. Now it made me look forward to seeing what West Side Story is going to come out with. So it got me excited.
And I mean, out of the two, the one that I am excited about so far is definitely Into the Heights.
Yeah,
Spielberg, as a genius as he is, he's really going to have to pull something out of the bag. But when you're talking about ripping stuff from the stage, we also know that Clint Eastwood did that. He ripped Jersey Boys off the stage and up into pieces.
Oh, my God.
And set that shit on fire.
Yeah, that was awful.
Awful.
And I saw that a couple weeks prior to seeing the movie, and I can't tell you how devastating
I love Jersey Boys the musical.
Me too.
I know it's a popcorn, crowd pleasing, chewing scenery like fucking jukebox musical, but it's so much fun.
Yeah, it is.
And he took all the fun out of it.
Oh my God!
And
Christopher Walken doing Christopher Walken. Oh my God!
Can't you see I'm walking here? But just terrible.
Did you like that movie?
Jersey Boys?
Yeah.
I expected more.
Okay.
Jersey Boys 13-15 to Paris. Sky Patterson, I actually preferred that to Jersey Boys, and that was terrible. Sky Patterson, I really like the Ghostbusters Afterlife trailer. It feels like a dramatic sci-fi indie film. It feels very nostalgic and up to date. I hope this film succeeds, but might not. Well, everything might not. That's a risk we take by making movies. I'm pretty confident right now, though, and I'm always happy to be wrong. Luke Skywalker, I have confidence that Jason Reitman will knock it out of the park. Xeno, I got a Super 8 vibe rather than a Stranger Things vibe from the trailer. Good point. I actually had a similar thought myself. Yash saying, I liked it. Nothing unique. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't entirely agree with that. Bollywood pumps out Into the Heights every week, to be honest with you. Yeah, yes, you've actually got a really good point there. Instead of Indian brown people, it's Mexican brown people. Lol. Don't tell Trump. Jenna James, I got both Super 8 and Stranger Things vibes. So Jenna obviously agreeing with Xeno Hour there, and Sky Patterson saying, Simon, is Finn Wolfhard, Alex Wolff, and Noah Jupe going to turn into an Ansel Elgort, Timothy Chalamet, Jacob Tremblay? What is this, like Transformers or GoBots? Over the course of the next 5 years, or do they not stand a chance? I mean, who knows?
They're going to be Power Rangers.
Yeah, they're going to be Power Rangers. That's great. I just honestly, I don't know. The industry is so fickle right now; it is actually quite difficult to predict that kind of thing. But the talent certainly suggests that they will be in demand.
And you forgot Lucas Hedges.
He needs to be in there. I fucking love Lucas Hedges.
Yeah.
And why do you have Jacob Group with Ansel and Chalamet? Lol from Jenna. Well, white people. I don't know.
White people be
Young
white
young
people.
white men.
Yeah.
Okay, let's also talk about Wonder Woman 1984, the trailer. I loved Wonder Woman. This, I'm genuinely. I'm very excited about this movie, and I'm really looking forward to it. My only concern is the fact they're putting more into style than substance, because it looks incredible. And I'm just wondering if we're being bedazzled with shiny. I really hope they can back it up, because if they can back up what we can see in the trailer, it's gonna be awesome. If they can't, it's gonna look awesome. Demetri on this one.
I am somewhat in agreement. They were hiding story.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was on purpose.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of dazzle. We got a lot of. It was predicated. This trailer was predicated on a lot of action.
Yeah.
A lot of action, and that kind of. It looked great, and it's gonna look super on a big screen. But I just said, okay, what's this about? Like, I remember when the first Wonder Woman, they were setting everything up, and I get that, and I sort of kind of wish they took that same tack in making this teaser to get out there. Tell me a little bit about the story. Yeah, it's really cool when she pumps out the bullet and hits it with her. And hits it with her bracelet, and but we saw a lot of stuff with the rope. But I'm like, okay. I love the fact that it's set in the 80s. It looks great. I don't know. There's
Okay.
a lot of style.
I think it looks great. I think I can tell that they at Warner Brothers, over at Warner Brothers, decided to actually give her more of a budget this time.
Yep.
It's very clear in just the trailer alone. I think they're going the smart route with doing the action and not telling the story. I think because they know, in order to get people interested with like superhero movies, they like to know the action sequences. Yep. And I don't think they want to ruin Kristen Wiig's character. I think they really want to kind of save that twist and turn for the actual film.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do welcome that, and I know wish more movies would do that. There's too much story there's all the story in some trailers these days.
Yeah.
But I'm very interested, and I'm really looking forward to this movie.
I
but
believe
I do,
in Patty Jenkins and just in
well,
general.
that's what I'm relying on. But
Yeah.
but woman, woman, make film. No, but seriously, she's great. We've seen this with Wonder Woman. We saw it with Monster. She can bring style, character, and substance to these movies on varying budget levels with varied degrees of razzle dazzle. Right. Like you, I believe in her. So
yeah, and I do too. But to your point though, you said, oh well, they gave her more budget. Well.
Yeah, they didn't give enough money. You remember how poor the marketing was for the first Wonder Woman? Ashley wrote about it, that their movie was like up until 30 days out, they barely put out any marketing.
But look what it did, and it was a really solid movie, and she didn't have to have whatever budget that. I get it.
But it could have been better. I mean, Wonder Woman
could have been better than what?
Wonder Woman was
huge.
great up until the last act. Then it comes down a little bit.
But I think that's a DC. I think that's a Marvel. That's a DC thing. Their third act, they traditionally have.
Right.
Certainly, from my point of view, fucking gonna get hate for this, but their third act seemed to be a stumbling block for them.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way about some directors like Chris Nolan. I mean,
Except
I've
for
never made a
Shazam.
movie.
Shazam has the best third act.
One of the few, absolutely.
Yeah.
Two things I want to get to very quickly, because we have a box office and I want to look at, and we have a couple of movies to review this week as well. Sad news this morning. Someone mentioned this in the chat. I think it was Kame actually. Danny Aiello. It was announced this morning that he has died. Obviously, Oscar nominated for Do the Right Thing. He was 86. Danny Aiello was an actor who always appeared to be around in everything, like during the 80s and 90s. There were like a handful of actors that were always in everything, whether it was on the big screen, the small screen, or directed to video in those days. A permanent presence. Demetri, first of all, your thoughts on Danny?
Yeah, he was just one of those wonderful character actors that could leap into a leading role, like he did in, like, say, Jack Ruby, but then he can be in a Hudson Hawk, right? But one of my favorites that I tweeted out, and I do highly suggest that you try to seek this movie out. He was in a movie with Anthony LaPaglia called 29th Street, which is based on a true story about the man who won, I believe it was New York's first lottery. And the movie is really about family togetherness and luck. And Danny Aiello plays the senior, and he's just fantastic. He was always gripping in a movie, and when you got him swearing in a movie, it was the best.
Oh, yeah.
It was the best.
And he mixed genres. I mean, I'm just looking now, like he was in The Stuff, he was in The Pickle, which was a movie that I watched, but it was so bad, but it was so much fun. He was in, he did Ruby as well. I mean, he did, God, what else did he do? I mean, there was so many movies. Jacob's Ladder was another one I remember him being in particularly well. Dinner Rush, I thought he was great in that. Hudson Hawk is a film that is often maligned, but I absolutely loved him in that. I love that movie anyway. Leon the Professional, Harlem Nights, one of my least favorite Eddie Murphy movies, but I remember Danny being in that, and that was a big highlight for me. And movies like Once Upon a Time in America, you know, Moonstruck as well.
Moonstruck,
Phenomenal performances. I mean, we say this often when people like Danny die, but you know, there are a lot of actors who never go. They have a long career and they never have the kind of rich resume that people like Danny Aiello have. And the sad thing is the fact that he's passed, but the great thing is the fact that he leaves this legacy for us and future generations to enjoy. Scott,
I mean, I just have to just bounce off what you just said. I think a lot of people always associate when actors pass, you're kind of like, oh, what did that person do? And they always fluctuate to one or two movies. Like that seems to be the case when everyone, especially when they're character actors. Best known for his work in that one Woody Allen movie 5 years ago. Right. And I think people forget that character actors have such a wide range of films. Their filmography is usually bigger than, say, a Tom Cruise.
Right.
Or an Al Pacino, because they wind up taking on these smaller roles, and there's one of those characters where you just see and you say, "Oh my God, that's that guy!
Yep.
I remember him from the other movie."
Sure.
And that's all you keep saying. So I think when someone like this always passes away, that's always something that I remember, because I'll be honest, and I'm guilty of this. When I hear the name, I'm kind of like, "Who's that?" And then I look up the work, and I'm kind of like, "Oh my God, this is that guy who was in like 25 movies that I really loved."
Yeah. And there are people who have been, you know, around longer than even like the acts of Danny Aiello, and they just don't ever have this contribution, even though they appear to be omnipresent.
Like Wallace Shawn.
Sure.
Oh my God! Like he's another one. Like probably no one knows what that name is.
Yeah.
But like if you look up,
Inconceivable.
But no, us. But I'm talking about like regular people would look that up and like.
To them, he's that guy from that thing.
Yeah.
But with Danny Aiello too, he hasn't been in anything that I can recall in quite some time.
Not for a while, no.
So, and I don't know whether that was health or whatever, but when I saw that this morning, I was like, oh, wow, I haven't seen him in a while, but it's at least, to your point, there's a fine legacy of movies that you can see. Not all of them are great, but I really go back to Hudson Hawk. I Do the Right Thing's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
And so isn't Moonlight, but 29th Street, if you do have the chance and you're able to find it anywhere, I would highly recommend you watch it. And it's another great performance by him, and probably Anthony LaPaglia's best.
Yeah. Jeff, can we get an extra 5 minutes on the show? Would that be okay? I've got one more story I want to talk about, and then I want to get our reviews. Okay, thanks, man. Okay, before we go to box office and this week's reviews, we have 4 movies to get through, so we need to keep this kind of contained. A story was in the Washington Post yesterday that I do want to touch on, because it's something that we actually discussed on the show last week. It's something that you pushed out there. Netflix sending journalists on pricey trips, raising questions and angering rivals. We are seeing this, especially in awards season. A lot of journalists from markets outside of major places like New York or LA being flown into New York and LA and other places to cover events. Netflix has done this a lot this year. They've done it for Marriage Story. They've done it for Irishman. They've done it for some other things as well. And a whole load, if you haven't read the piece of Washington Post, you should do. They're basically offered private sit-downs with the filmmakers, private breakfast meetings and stuff like that. They get to go to the premiere. They get to be put up in fancy hotels and stuff like that. And now, obviously, aside from it being awards season and people saying, oh, you're trying to buy favour, you know, is this shilling? Are people shilling for this because you're flying them around and treating them brilliant, and that therefore they will see your movie as more preferable and give it more attention than studio films that are not offering you that same level of treatment? Scott, I want you to take the lead on this. Your thoughts on this?
So, I mean, before I get into this, I just want to say that studios in general do this year-round. Mm-hmm. The difference between studios doing it year-round and what Netflix did, there's a couple key differences. The things what studios do is that it's a select group of people who go year round on these trips, whether it's to London for Cats, which is they just did this past week,
Right.
or whatever, Downton Abbey. There's a select group of people who have been in the industry for a while, and it's always the same people. Every once in a while, someone will get lucky and they'll squeeze someone in because someone else couldn't go, but it's very, very rare. So there's this. People need to know that there's a select group of people, and you probably know because you always read about the same people who do the set visits or go to the junkets, and they're like, how are these same people at all these junkets? That's what it is. So that's a problem within itself.
Yeah.
But what started this whole controversy with Netflix is the fact that they're doing it not as much throughout the year, but a lot during award season.
Yep.
And what their mistake was, and this is what their mistake was, is that instead of focusing on all guilds, they decided to hone in on the Critics' Choice.
Yeah.
And you and me are both members of Critics' Choice,
We
so
are.
I'm just gonna fully disclose that right to you. It is very concerning because also what people may not know is Critics' Choice over the last 2 years has kind of done what Rotten Tomatoes did about 2 years ago when there was the call for action for more voices in film criticism. And
Yeah.
what they did was they opened the door to a whole bunch of people. And some people I know, some people I don't know. But there is problems with that because something that Simon has went on about, and I agree with him, is that there's this issue of credibility within the industry now. And there's a lot of people who are working in the industry who just kind of like popped in a year or two ago, and all of a sudden they're in one of the biggest critics guilds in the country.
Yeah.
Or in the world, I should say.
And these are also people who don't necessarily particularly have an audience and don't do it professionally, as in they don't get paid.
Right. And that's also part of the problem. And that ties into the whole issue of what this article is getting at. And that is they are being flown, staying in a hotel, which is anywhere from $500 to $2,000 a night. Beautiful, gorgeous hotels, ones I could never afford to stay in on a regular basis, like the Four Seasons, the Beverly Hilton, things of that nature.
Oh, you can't? Oh.
No, I can't afford to stay there.
Sucks to be you. I'm kidding.
And the thing is that the people who they fly out, and some of them are very nice people and they're really passionate about
It's
the craft.
nothing to do whether they're nice or not.
It has nothing to do with that. But the reality of it is that they're not making enough to survive their regular lives where they live. So they're being flown out and they're getting all this wonderful interactions where they get these private lunches and they stay in these nice hotels. They get to see the world. And that means a lot to people. People don't have those experiences.
No.
And when you don't have when you don't have money to have that, you're going to remember the experience. It's going to stick out in your mind. And what's concerning for these voters, and I know studios are upset about this, is that it's different when they're doing it year round and you're going to a junket. Do they need to do junkets outside of New York and LA? No, they don't. But they do it because they try to fit the tone of the movie. I don't even know the reasons. But what Netflix is doing with picking one specific group,
Yeah.
who they kind of know can, and I'm not saying everyone, but some people, I think, will look at this and say, wow, like this is a great experience. Nobody else gave me this experience.
Let's not pretend. We all know people in the industry, whether it's Los Angeles,
Yeah.
New York, or whether it's from, Trailer Town, Idaho, who are very heavily influenced by the treatment that they get from
Yes.
film companies. And they will, some people who will also never say anything against a movie or a film company
Yes.
because they don't want to damage their chances of falling out of favor.
We
It's
know
a
that.
tale
So-
as old as time.
It's a tale as old as
been
time.
Going on forever.
And it's not just this industry that you get it in all industries. People
Yes.
don't want to rock the boat because they want to get the shiny and the nice time and look amazing. There is a big problem with this, but I mean, there are a lot of companies that I work with, I am contractually not allowed to take. So if somebody said to me, Simon, I want to fly you to New York to do a piece for Forbes on with this junket, we're going to give you all the bells and whistles, I am not allowed to take it. I'm in breach of contract with my outlet.
Interesting.
When I was at Reuters, we would get the chance all the time to be flown around the world. Like a good example was Jumanji, the first Jumanji of the
Hawaii,
reboot, to Hawaii. We're not allowed to take it because Reuters do not accept anything like flights, hotels, or anything like that for payment for journalists from companies, whether you're a PR company or a film studio, don't allow it. Right. You've got to do it in your locale. to avoid any way of going, oh, well, yeah, but you got flown to Hawaii, so you're going to say this movie's great. So there are certain companies that are very ethical, and they are bound by their contracts, their terms, to not be allowed to do stuff like this. There are free agents who can take whatever they want, and they are bound by nothing.
Yes.
Nothing at all. And it is not, I'm not accusing Netflix of buying votes. I don't think that's the case. However, it is also short-sighted to not think that when someone who has little to nothing is given a lot, that is not going to influence potentially.
But again, I go back to this has been happening since
Yeah,
the
this is not
70s and
a
80s.
new problem. This
No,
is not
it's
a
not
new
a new
problem.
problem, but it's also when people were getting paid a lot. I know that the landscape's different now. You and I had the conversation. The difference, to me, the main difference is that, okay, Miramax has been, Miramax was always accused of buying awards, and Miramax would spend a lot during campaign season, but major studios always flew out certain tastemakers, certain critics, right? Wherever it was, whether it's to Pearl Harbor for this or sending them to New Zealand to see Lord of the Rings, right? My only problem again goes to Netflix is doing this and people are buying into it. So like it's different when Universal sends somebody to Kauai to be on set for Jurassic World. Well, Jurassic World is going to be released traditionally. Netflix doesn't care about that, and they're spending a ton more money than even Miramax ever spent in its heyday to get these movies out, and they want people to treat them like a studio when they really are not a theatrical
I see. I don't
studio.
think that's the problem.
Okay, well, I mean, that's another argument. That's another conversation that. But we only have so much.
A ton of money to do that.
The fact that they're spending a ton of money is undeniable.
But it all comes back. Here's the difference, though. The difference between a regular junket and flying someone there. And again, keep in mind what I said. It's usually the same group of people.
It is.
And I can name most of those people. It's usually the same group of people. With this, it was a targeted group of people who had a major say in how a group voted. And a group that voted where, like, I'm not going to say on this panel that I honestly don't understand how some of the nominations were picked up. I don't understand how they were formulated.
Yep.
I don't understand.
fair.
It makes no sense.
Simon, may I please just ask you, because I'm
very quickly, because we've got 11 minutes.
No, I understand, but so if part of the work, if you were asked to go to a junket, like say they weren't junketing it here, saying the only junket was in New York, so that's part of it.
I'd have to do it by phone.
You'd have to do it by phone.
I couldn't, And someone's saying, like sites like Forbes and other things accept ads. Yeah, ads are fine. That when you buy advertising, you buy advertising.
Right.
What you're not allowed to do is influence editorial by giving someone gifts. So which could be construed as
It
gifts.
could be construed as a gift. Gotcha.
Yeah. So inviting someone to a screening, if you're doing a review, is absolutely fine. If you're doing it for editorial purposes, absolutely fine. If you're flying someone out to somewhere and you're putting them up in a fancy hotel and you're effectively affording them something over and above what they would need to do a basic job, then that is different.
Understood.
But buying ads, buying banners, and all that stuff is completely different. That is business.
Yeah.
That does not influence the editorial.
No, I
Anyone
appreciate the clarification.
Yeah,
That's what I
anybody could buy an advert on the site, and then someone could go, "This film is shit." That doesn't affect the advertising because they bought the advertising. It's completely separate entities.
Gotcha.
They're never to be confused, which is why people get upset about this stuff, because that's where it gets a bit confused, potentially. Okay, we have a little bit of time we need to get through. Thank you for asking. It's good to get the clarification. Okay, box office this weekend. A lot of big movies coming out, a lot of movies coming out, some bigger than others. Jumanji Next Level opened with previews last night at 4.7 million. That's really going to be the one that I think is going to come out on top this weekend. Black Christmas also did previews last night, 230,000, which is not great. According to Box Office Mojo, box office is looking like this for the weekend. Jumanji, the next level, going to be number 1, 45 million. I think it could bring in 45 million. The buzz is not out there that I kind of would have expected. Frozen 2 in second place, 21. Richard Jewell coming in third, 11. I think that's a little bit high. Black Christmas, 10.5 million. Knives Out rounding out the 5 at 9.5. And then, we've got everything else that's been out for a little while, but Star Wars is coming out next week, so we're going to fuck on away. Okay, very quickly. Richard Jewell, first of all. let's take a look at Richard Jewell. Guys, your thoughts on this? Demetri, first of all.
For me, I didn't really know what to expect going in. I liked the trailer, but then I've liked a lot of Clint Eastwood trailers from the recent past, and the movies have never lived up to them. This movie, for me, exceeded the expectations. It was a real pleasant surprise. I thought it was one of Clint Eastwood's best movies within the past 5 years or so. I mean, I enjoyed The Mule, but not as much as I enjoyed this depiction and the performances. I think you had like Kathy Bates, and right now I forget
Paul Walter Hauser.
Paul Walter Hauser was fantastic. Like he's been really great in other movies, but Clint Eastwood utilized what he does and really put it up on the screen, and he's great. Sam Rockwell's fantastic. Kathy Bates, I think, is fantastic, and I think it's really well directed, and I think it's a good story for everybody to see.
Yeah.
So it was really well.
Scott?
I really love this movie. It was a film that, because of what you said and what he said, is that Clint Eastwood is so hit and miss for me.
Yeah,
just as
really,
a director. Yeah. It's like I come out of one thing and I love it. Next movie is like, what is this piece of shit? And I was just so invested in this story and seeing it being told on the big screen, and I think it's interesting to watch a film like this, because I know a lot of people see Clint Eastwood's politics within the film itself, and there are some things there that are notable and should be pointed out, but you also have to remember where the movie is taking place too, in Atlanta, and what the year was. So please keep that in mind when watching the movie. That being said, I think it's a very honest film about media and our assumptions towards things and the way we treat others.
We're looking for a villain.
And there's just the ending of this movie, there's a speech that happens, and I think that's like one of the best movie moments of the year.
Yeah. I didn't like the movie overall. I thought Paul Walter Hauser was great. I thought he was the yin and yang with Sam Rockwell. I thought they were great together. Kathy Bates I thought was fine. Clint Eastwood loves images of her scuffling across an apartment in her slippers for some reason. I thought the cinematography on this was fine in some ways and remarkably sloppy in other ways, and I thought the editing was weak. I genuinely, there were some elements in this where I was just like, that is amateurish. It's like it's a first edit and you haven't done a final scrub on it. I was disappointed with that. But Clint Eastwood's had a great career, and he's made more movies than I potentially will ever make in my life. So he can feel free to tell me to shut the fuck up. But I didn't like Richard Jewell, but for me, Paul Walter Hauser is someone who came through, and this just absolutely blew me away. There is one reason to see this movie, and that is Paul Walter Hauser. Uncut Gems also out this week. Scott, first on this.
I saw that Telluride. I really dug this movie. I think that this is, without question, Adam Sandler's finest moment on the big screen. Soundtrack, it's not for everyone. A little overpowering at times, kind of takes you out of the movie.
Yeah.
Julia Fox, a brand new, incredible up-and-coming actress. Adina, I don't know what she was doing in this movie. Very confusing.
Random casting.
Very, very random. And especially when you have a powerhouse like her, like so underused. But this movie is really about Adam and Julia, and the two are fantastic in the film, and it's intense from beginning to end. You do know where the movie's going about halfway through, so it's not like it's not predictable, but you're still on like this intense roller coaster ride.
Demetri.
Yeah, I thought it was Sandler's best performance since Punch Drunk Love. I still like that movie a little bit better, but this movie, at least from a suspense standpoint, I mean, because it kept going.
Yeah.
It kept going as if you were in New York, and the camera was following him as a New York, Diamond District jeweler, and making these, he's paying Peter to pay Paul, and it was just crazy, and you were just wondering, okay, when's this finally going to catch up to him? And certain things, he's just like this schmuck who has bad luck, and even when he gets good luck, it ends up being...
He can't help fuck it up.
Or it gets fucked up for him, because it's like, you did what?
Yeah.
So I really appreciated its kineticism. It never overstayed its welcome. Again, you can kind of see where the movie's gonna go. But Sandler was proves that he can act. I'm glad they chose him. He was really perfect for this role.
I like both of the leads in this. I like Julia and I love Adam. But this movie genuinely it made me anxious. I was just so stressed by the end of it. I don't know whether I liked it. I absolutely admire it as a piece of filmmaking, and it's something that I will not forget. Did I like it? I don't know. Do I know who's going to go and see this in movie theaters? I honestly have no idea who is going to go and see this in movie theaters.
People love A24.
It makes you...
But do you know what? It makes you something. It makes you a lot of things.
It makes you anxious.
But seriously, I felt like I needed to lie down at the end of this. It made Hobbs and Shaw look like a drive through the country when it comes to stress levels. Uncut Gems, it's something. Black Christmas. Okay, can I just take the lead on this one?
Yes.
I've got to be honest with you. There aren't many movies I almost walk out of, and this was one where I genuinely, I actually considered walking out of. Not because of what it's about, not because it's written and directed by women. That has nothing to do with it. I just didn't enjoy it as a movie. And it could have not been Black Christmas. They just could have taken Black Christmas off it and called it something else. I just did not enjoy. So many things I disliked about this movie. I mean, I did not like this movie.
It's one of the worst movies of the year.
It is for me. I'm
it's
sorry.
It's just abysmal on every level.
It's not even fucking scary.
It's not scary. It's not
clever.
clever. It's not interesting. It shoves the same message down your throat for 90 minutes straight. And the only person who I really feel bad for is Imogen Poots. Because
I love Imogen
She's
Poots.
trying so hard to make this work when she's got this horrible dialogue and these one-liners. It's just
the dialogue is terrible.
I couldn't stand it.
It's funny when people talk very quickly. When people talk about how men write such bad dialogue for women, and then I heard this dialogue and I'm like, no, women can get it wrong sometimes too. I'm sorry, Demetri.
I'm going from it where I at least respected the attempt of what they were trying to do. Like, I understand, and to me, I was trying to go back in history to see, has there ever been a horror movie that's been on both sides of the camera, heralded, championed, creative side, acting side, all women? So Sophia Tackle and April, I forget right now, Wolf, I understood what they were doing. Its immediate relevance was all in there, but it didn't see the movie screen for the screenplay. It was very heavy-handed. It was like a blunt axe to the head, and then it made me wonder if they were doing that on purpose, considering the audience that it's really going for, which is teenage girls. And so, they really do beat you over the head with the message. But there were aspects of it that I appreciated that I thought were really well done. The Christmas pageant, was actually probably my favorite scene, and I didn't see the song, the Christmas Carol, going the way it was, and it kind of made me go, well, isn't this exactly what they don't want to do? But then you figure there's a reason why. It's not a great movie. It's not particularly a very scary horror movie. From what I understand, it was supposed to be rated R, and they reshot and made it PG-13. I wish Sophia went all out and they made it R, because I would have loved to have seen her vision as a rated R movie, because I think women can tell great horror stories if given the opportunity.
Women, I don't disagree with the message of the movie. Women need to be served better by this kind of thing. And I think we've seen several movies that are strong female feminist bent, and they do a much better job than this. For me, it was not good. Okay, very quickly, we got Jumanji: The Next Level. Okay, I mean, this is the one that's going to dominate this weekend. The first film, a lot of people didn't think was going to be very good, myself included. Turned out to be great. Had a great time. A lot of people, the first question they're going to ask is this as good as the first one? For me, it's not quite as good as the first one, but it's still good. The first half takes a little bit of time to get going. Second half of the movie is a lot better. The final third act really sells this movie for you, and it makes it worth the entry alone. I'd be okay if they did another one. I'd be absolutely fine if they left it here with 2. I think that's absolutely fine. Some nice new faces, nice additions to the cast that I think bring enough to the table to really make it worth you watching this. It's good fun. It's just a good fun adventure movie. That's all it is. It's a good fun family adventure movie, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. I mean, I genuinely was like, it's not as good as the first one, but I enjoyed watching it, and I'm glad I gave it my time, Scott.
I think it's very interesting for me watching this movie because I could have done without the action. You know, and I know that's the reason why, you know, people go see this and kids want to go see this is because they want to see the scenes with the ostriches and the monkeys and things like that because that's what excites children. But for adults and a lot of people I've talked to about this movie, they just love the interaction and the storylines between the characters.
Okay.
And I think that's really what's strong about the film is that it does have something for the adults where they know these actors and they know why they're mocking, like why it's so funny that he's doing the funny voice. Like little kids and teenagers are not really like who's Danny Glover, who's Danny DeVito.
They won't bother about that.
They won't know that. But then the adults love that and they appreciate it. And then the kids just love the shenanigans of it all with the action.
And I think it doesn't quite work as well when they've swapped who the people are. I don't think it works quite as well as it did in the first movie when there's something happens and
no, because they don't spend enough time on certain characters. I was telling him that like Jack Black was the scene stealer in the first movie. Okay, this one I feel like he got very little screen time to kind of play both the characters, even when he went back into whatever. I don't want to spoil it.
No.
Yeah, but. There's some swapping going on in the movie. But there just wasn't enough screen time of him.
Yeah.
And I mean, Awkwafina shows up later, and, she's in the trailer. But, same thing happens with her where I don't feel like she gets enough time.
No. Demetri, your thoughts on this?
I thought the movie was okay. As an adult, The Rock just couldn't carry off that comedy. He just couldn't carry off being Danny DeVito. It was too long. And I just didn't think that he could do it. But to your point, kids aren't going to care.
No.
So, the action was fine. It's harmless. There's nothing offensive about this movie.
No.
It's great for families to go to, and it has a dirigible. So it was fun. It's fine. It was okay. It's hard. It's not the best movie I'm going to see this holiday season, but for the people who like the first one, this one's going to deliver. It's more of the same but different, and there you go. That's all you can ask for a sequel is to be at least on par.
And it delivers action. It delivers, it licks along at a good pace, and it delivers the laughs. And at the end of the day, it's it's kind of what you need. It's like great for this time of year for holidays. So I mean, not as good as the original, but I think it's worth checking out. Okay, very briefly, your pick of the films for the week, then, guys. Demetri, first of all, on this: Jumanji, Black Christmas, Uncut Gems, or Richard Jewell?
Richard Jewell for me.
Interesting.
Richard Jewell for me too.
Okay, for me, it's going to be Jumanji, but all worthy films in different ways, and then Black Christmas. Sorry, seriously, I wanted to really love that movie. I was very down for this movie, and it just did not work for me. Thank you so much. I just want to say very quickly to Yash in the chat, no, Danny Aiello is not black. What I do though is suggest that you find out some of Danny Aiello's movies and watch them because you will appreciate his talent. What a loss this week. Demetri, thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Who are you? Where can we find you?
You can find me here on Popcorn Talk Network, Meet the Movie Press, and other various shows. And I just wanted to say Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays. This will be, I believe, my last appearance for 2019. See you next year.
Scott Menzel.
Sounds good. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @TheOtherScottM. Go over to WeLiveEntertainment.com because there's going to be a ton of interviews going up all weekend.
My name is Simon Thompson. You can find me at ShowbizSimon on Instagram and Twitter. You can find this show at Meet Movie Press on Twitter. Thank you so much. Next week is going to be an end-of-the-year review, so we're going to look at our favourite movies of the year. And also we'll talk about a little movie coming out called War Stars. Who knows what that'll be like. My name is Simon Thompson. Have a great week, everybody. Don't forget, watch those movies!
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.